How's it going, guys? I know it's been a while. I haven't posted any video, and you'll know why in a moment. But I'll try to be more consistent with this YouTube thing.
Very false. Very false.
True.
Also, a quick update: I got a job at Paytm as a software developer, backend developer to be specific. And in this video, I'll be covering two things: how I prepared for my interview and the Paytm interview experience. So let's get on with it. So during my sophomore and pre-final year, I used to solve a lot of coding problems, so that helped me a lot. And most of the time I used to solve problems on lead code, but I have solved quite a few problems on Geeks for Geeks as well. Now the key thing here is to solve good problems regularly, okay? So by good problem, I mean that, problems where there is a good concept being used or there is some sort of pattern, and that pattern and the concept that is being used is not too apparent, okay? If you do these kind of problems regularly, that will keep your head spinning, okay? Now talking about the core CS fundamentals like operating system, networking and DBMS, I mostly studied these topics from Geeks for Geeks, and I had my notes with me which I prepared during my sophomore and pre-final year. So there are a few topics that you can't leave out no matter what. So for example, in operating system, we have concepts like scheduling algorithms, memory management, paging and paging segmentation. And in networking, we have things like OSI model and the protocols that are used in each of these layers, then TCP/IP model, DSCP. And in DBMS, you should know how to write queries. You should know how to join two tables. You should know how to write subqueries. You should be clear with the concept of indexing and things like cardinalities, asset properties, transaction. Now another important thing that you must be prepared for is object-oriented principles. So you should be knowing concepts like encapsulation, polymorphism, inheritance, and abstraction. And not only you should be knowing the definitions, but you should be able to explain these concepts using a piece of code or some sort of examples. And at last, I was rehearsing how I'll explain my projects that I have mentioned in my resume. Even couple of hours before the interview, I was going through my resume again and again, revising what I did in my internship and why I used this framework over that framework. So that's pretty much it. And it took me around 2.5 to 3 months. So now let's talk about the interview experience. So for the interview, we had 3 rounds. First was the online assessment, then the first technical interview, then the second technical interview followed by a HR round. And the eligibility criteria was that you have to be a computer science or information technology major with a 7+ CGPA. Now the online assessment was on CoCubes and we had like 3 questions and 70 minutes. And talking about the questions, so the first question was really easy. It was actually a trick question. So if you had solved that question before, you would know how to solve that. So I kind of got lucky with that question. And the rest of the 2 questions were based on graphs and DP. In order to advance to the next round, you have to clear every test cases in each of these questions. Now comes the first technical interview. He started by asking about myself and the projects that I worked on. And at the same time, he was going through my resume. So when I finished explaining my project, he said, and I quote, that looks like you have got enough experience and your projects are really good. So let's move to the coding part. So that's really boosted my confidence. I didn't saw that coming. Now the question that he gave me, there were around, I think there were 4 to 5 questions that he gave me, and I would say the difficulty level was lead code medium. Okay, so they were doable, in enough time. And what I did was, first of all, I explained him my logic, and then he asked me to share my screen. So my screen was shared, and I opened a notepad or some application where I could write, and I wrote the code in pseudocode. Okay, so he was not asking for a working code. Instead, he was asking just for the pseudocode. So I was done with that. Except for the last question, he just asked me to explain the logic since we were running out of time. For the last few minutes of the interview, he grilled me on some of the OOPS concept, OOPS in Java concept. And I was quite certain that I'll advance to the next round, which I did. So for the second technical interview, he asked me to explain one of the projects which was based on microservices. So I explained him the concepts that I used and what were my learning and what were the issues that I faced and how I tackled them. And I explained him like what all tech stack I have used and why. So and then after that he gave me a few questions. Now these questions were actually easy compared to my previous interview. So I did it in no time. And again, I was complimented saying that the code that I have written is really clean and modular. So he told me that the previous interviewees were writing all the code in main function. Now the HR round was over a call, and he asked me about my location preferences and some feedback regarding the interview process. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I tried my best to explain you all everything, and I hope now you guys have a better idea of what to expect if you are giving an interview. So yeah, do let me know if you have any questions or suggestions on what should be my next video. Until then, peace.